All right, welcome back to Dangerville. This I'm really excited about. Can Peter Jackson's Kong survive the MonsterVerse? I'm gonna go ahead and say probably not because he's quite small. He's probably what, 20 meters tall max, 30 meters tall max. I don't know. He's not very big. He's more or less, I would say, if he stood up straight, maybe the same size as Kong in Kong Skull Island. If I had to take a rough estimate, probably around that, maybe half actually. Not nearly that, half or less. He's quite a tiny little fella. But he did really well against the V-Rexes, so he could stand a chance against smaller skull crawlers like we see here now. So I'm quite excited to get into it. So I'll link the original down below, so please make sure to go check it out. And let's get straight to it. Let's go.
The 2005 iteration of King Kong stands as one of the most physical, primal interpretations of the character we've ever seen.
Yeah, he went through
a
lot.
Creature shaped entirely by Skull Island's brutal food
like
chain.
A fourth the size
He's
of
fast,
Kong
he's
from
vicious,
Skull
and
Island.
every scar in his body tells a story about the monsters he's already taken down. But the big question is, how far would
Actually, scratch what I said about him being anywhere near the size of Kong from Kong Skull Island. He's more like the size of... Is the movie called Rampage with The Rock and that big albino gorilla? He's the same size as that, as I would say.
that skill set actually take him outside his own movie? Could Peter Jackson's Kong survive in a world filled with towering titans, monstrous super species, and hollow earth creatures built to wipe out anything in their path? Today we're breaking down his abilities, his limits, and the kind of threats that would either push him to his peak or overwhelm him entirely. From his raw physicality to his intelligence and combat instincts, we're going to see how he measures up against some of the deadliest monsters in cinema. For this video, we'll be placing Kong directly on the MonsterVerse's own Skull Island, a familiar yet also alien place for King Kong, with similar lush jungle environments, but in it are completely unrecognizable monsters, ready to challenge Kong for everything he's got. So, would King Kong survive the MonsterVerse's Skull Island? Let's find out. I'm your host Alistair, and welcome to Dangerville. Before we see what the big ape has got, be sure to subscribe. I'm talking to the 68% of you that aren't, because Godzilla knows if
you... Hey, there's about like 1% of you guys maybe that subscribe here, so, you know, help a brother out. No, go check out Dangerville.
You haven't, and he's hungry. King Kong stands at 25 feet tall and bears the greatest resemblance to a species of silverback gorilla. 5 feet tall.
25 feet.
King Kong stands at 25 feet tall.
Oh, he's very small. Okay, listen, we don't use feet over here. He's 7.6 meters. And that is a very little fella. He's half the size of the Attack Titan from Attack on Titan. That's crazy.
And bears the greatest resemblance to a species of silverback gorilla, specialized for hunting on his native region of Skull Island. His habitat is a tropical island west of Sumatra, but not the bright, sunny kind you picture when you hear that word. It's a dark, storm-lashed prehistoric ecosystem where the heat and humidity feed a maze of overgrown jungle, tangled roots, and towering cliffs. The island is constantly battered by violent weather, trapped in mist, and packed with predators that evolved in total isolation. You've got V-Rexes that fight in close quarters, giant insects, and grotesque arthropods that thrive in the caves and pits, raptors that hunt in swarms, and massive herbivores that stampede through the tight canyons. Everything on the island evolved for brutal, short-range fights where ambush and aggression matter more than size. Swamps, ravines, and dense rainforests dominate the landscape, giving the whole island a wet, claustrophobic, almost gothic atmosphere. MonsterVerse Skull Island, on the other hand, is far more open and Titan-scaled. It's still tropical, but the geography is built around giant creatures. Huge valleys with wider plains, massive rivers, and whole regions shaped by Titan activity. The weather is extreme, but the ecosystem is less decayed and more vibrant, with larger predators like skull crawlers, mother longlegs, and Titan-sized hazards that come from the hollow earth. It's an island designed for creatures of titanic proportions. Placing Kong on this island would mean he's no longer the top of the food chain, and has to quickly learn that he has to change up his hunting style. Kong doesn't exactly have any unique abilities. He doesn't have a beast glove, atomic breath, or bulletproof skin. He's just smart, strong, and cunning. But he's also an animal.
Titanis Kong didn't need the beast glove to survive on Skull Island. You know what I mean? He didn't need it. It's just due to circumstances that he got it, and it helps him a lot because it makes his punches stronger, but he doesn't need it in this game.
More that relies on reading his environment. He knows where the V-Rexes hunt, he knows the cliff routes, he understands his own island.
Many years,
drop him off into a totally alien ecosystem, and there's going to be a learning curve. He'd struggle in the dense bamboo forests, he'd be cautious in open fields where the skull crawlers roam, he wouldn't recognize the typical signs of amber-peat tunnels beneath his feet, or the kind of poisonous predators that drop from the trees. Kong would quickly learn that navigating this version of Skull Island isn't about strength. It's about knowing when to strike and slip back into the shadow.
Him being a Kong as well, would he even be an... First of all, would he even be a Titan? Because he's freaking tiny. And would he maybe register as an Alpha as well? Because he's a Kong. Probably not, but he's a Kong, so maybe... It's an interesting thought.
Before something bigger catches his scent. Things like the deadly mother longlegs, despite their tall stature and poisonous legs, would be no problem for Kong, as their spindly bamboo-like legs would be easily broken by Kong's immense strength. But then...
So, mother longlegs shouldn't be a problem. There's another creature that the mother longlegs fought against that shouldn't be a problem either. The bison, the water bison or water buffalo, whatever it's called, could be a little bit of a challenge. Those jackals, I think he'd be fine because he took down the V-Rex, so it shouldn't be an issue. They're probably smaller than the V-Rexes and not as strong, so probably easy. Then from the Icarus tiger, I think is when it becomes a problem. That is going to be a problem. He's going to have to use that 1000% of his brain. The Icarus tiger, damn.
Creatures like the spore mantis would pose no threat to him and back down from any encounter with the big ape. One by one.
Oh, and the baby skullcrawler, the little ones, maybe could take it down depending on how big they are compared to him. From the movie, they looked quite sizable, so they may be a little bit bigger than him, 1.5 times his size, maybe around the same size. If he uses tools correctly, he can survive, take them down. But he's cooked. He's going to be dinner.
Kong would figure out his new place on the food chain, but there are other, more deadly creatures lurking nearby.
That is actually another crazy thing.
Moving through the MonsterVerse Skull Island jungle, here, right? Kong tracks a predator that he hopes to make his next meal. The forest here doesn't sound or smell like his own home, but he'd recognize the signs of a hunter. Crushed foliage, claw marks, and the faint stink of something reptilian. When he finally gets eyes on the creature, he'd freeze for a moment, unsure of what exactly he's looking at. A long, pale, bony thing with no hind legs, moving with a mix of serpentine glide and sudden burst of speed. It's nothing like the dinosaurs he knows. When the skullcrawler strikes, the fight becomes immediately chaotic. Its reach and speed overwhelm him at first, dragging him across the ground. Its reach and speed overwhelm him at first, dragging him across the ground and snapping at him from all angles. Kong would struggle, adapt, and then push back with raw power and instinct, eventually managing to overpower and kill the creature. But the victory wouldn't sit right with him. As he glances across the valley, he sees several more skull crawlers varying in size.
Yeah, get high ground.
Even towering over him. Thankfully, they didn't hear the conflict. As he studies the strange creature's body, he realizes this is merely a juvenile, not even full grown, and Kong slowly begins to back away. There are more of them out there, and some grow to sizes many times larger than even him. It's a learning lesson for Kong. On this Skull Island, he's no longer anywhere near the top of the food chain.
His best bet would be
Kong would make sure to avoid any encounters with the larger skull crawlers, the ones on the scale of Ramarak, because he just doesn't stand a chance. But that doesn't mean Kong doesn't dominate a large part of this new ecosystem. Skur buffalo would become a food source for Kong, as they provide the necessary protein to sustain his massive build.
Yeah, so Skur buffalo and below, I think he's chilling. But then Icarus tiger and above is where he's gonna be very much in danger. So he's actually quite literally basically planted in the middle of the food chain, I would say.
But he would need to be extra careful where he treads, since many of the island's creatures are in fact poisonous. Take the giant snare hunter ants, for example.
What the heck?
One bite might not stop him, but a swarm may be enough to take him down. Each sting injects venom that burns through his muscle, clouds his senses, and slows his reflexes in a way he's never experienced. These creatures have poison designed
Bro, I know I'm pausing a lot, I apologize, but I do need to say this. There's so many insane creatures on Skull Island, like in the lore and stuff. Like the ants, for example, that they just didn't show in the film. Like, they could just show it, man. They mention it, but they just didn't show it. Like, come on, I want to see it all. I want to see all the creatures there is. It's so cool.
To take down creatures many times larger than him, so he'd have to plan out his route carefully. He's no longer jumping straight into hazards like he did in the 2005 film. But predators on Skull Island don't just crawl on the ground, they also strike from above. The psycho vultures dominate the skies with 9-foot wingspans and a nasty habit of sending themselves into a drug-induced frenzy by eating the island's poisonous pufferfish. Once that chemical hits their system, they become uncontrollable, attacking anything that moves, even creatures way too big for them to actually eat. Basically, flying berserkers. They've also evolved a kind of thermal vision, letting them spot warm-blooded targets from the night sky. For Jackson's Kong, avoiding them would mean masking his heat signature by slipping into mud or swamp water, full Arnold in Predator style. Kong is a master of using his surroundings to survive, and anything that helps him stay hidden or gain the upper hand is something he'd pick up fast. Luckily, the dense forest he'd choose to live in would give him decent cover, breaking up the lines of attack and making it harder for these aerial psychos to get a clean dive at him. Though, there is another inhabitant of Skull Island, one that looks a lot like him. Kong, standing over 300 feet tall. What would he make of this funny-looking new primate? Would he see him as a threat to the ecosystem, or possibly even befriend him? MonsterVerse Kong has a degree of empathy and intelligence far above most titans.
There's no way we just said that at the exact same time. Him being intelligent, his best bet, finding another species that is basically the same as him, obviously there's differences, he should try and communicate first, try and team up maybe. But if you then get that bond, then he's set. He will be so much more protected. He could live in this ecosystem so much easier, not having to look after over his back even while he's sleeping. Big brain maneuvers. We should get a game where we can play as Kong in this. That'd be dope.
He'd recognize the smaller Kong as an unusual but harmless creature. He wouldn't waste energy attacking him. In fact, he'd probably ignore him entirely unless something major forced a confrontation, which is extremely unlikely. You could even argue that the MonsterVerse Kong would have a slight soft spot for the 05 version. Seeing another primate trying to survive in the chaos would remind him of his own struggle, surviving as the lone member of his species on the island. He might even grow to enjoy his company.
Now that I think about it, he's probably around the same size as Suko. Actually, probably a bit smaller. Maybe a lot smaller. I don't actually know. I can't remember how big Suko is. But they could be buddies until Suko's grown up. He's like, oh shit, now I'm the tiny one. Great.
And seeing him taking down invasive species would have him like, hey, you like killing skull crawlers too? That's awesome. Keep doing that. 05 Kong would use this to his advantage, reluctantly staying close to MonsterVerse Kong's territory at the highest peak of the island. Areas of Skull Island, the predators and skull crawlers instinctively avoid. However, they might come to a crossroad when it comes to the iwi. Back in his own world, Kong has no real relationship with humans beyond these ceremonial sacrifices witnessed from beyond the gorge. No relationship with humans beyond these ceremonial sacrifices witnessed from beyond the gorge. But the iwi aren't screaming, panicking tribes like the ones he's used to. They're silent, calm, and deeply connected to the island itself. To Kong, their lack of fear would be confusing at first. He'd circle them with suspicion, expecting traps or weapons, but the iwi never attack, never challenge dominance, and never behave unpredictably. Over time, he'd recognize them as non-threatening, almost like these small forest creatures he ignores on his own Skull Island. He might even grow to see them the way MonsterVerse Kong does, as part of the landscape, harmless, respectful, and worthy of its protection. If anything, they'd be the first beings on the island he fully relaxes around, realizing they're survivors just like him, not competitors in the food chain. And it's a good thing too, because if he were to strike, MonsterVerse Kong would quickly turn him into a bloody stain beneath his foot. But what of Godzilla? Would he see this new Kong as a threat, enough to circle the island to scope him out? Honestly,
this is what I was getting at. A new Kong, so he's a Kong species basically. Would he be seen as a Titan or Alpha perhaps? You know? It's a high chance that it's not, but the theory and the thought of it actually being a thing would be It's cool. It's funny.
Wouldn't perceive him at all. He only engages creatures that disrupt the natural order or pose a threat to stability. A smaller ape who hunts juvenile skullcrawlers is actively helping the balance. Cool. So Godzilla wouldn't feel the need to swim over to Skull Island to deal with this anomaly. Which brings us back to the initial question. Could King Kong 2005 survive MonsterVerse Skull Island? The answer is yes, but he would have a very different role on the island. He wouldn't dominate the region, he wouldn't challenge the top predators, he wouldn't try to be the apex titan like his towering native relative. He survives by avoiding adult skullcrawlers, hunting juveniles for his main food source and territory control, sticking to vertical terrain and dense forests for cover, learning the ecosystem quickly, what's poisonous and what to avoid, sticking close to MonsterVerse Kong's territory, helps to have an alpha titan by your side, and understanding your limits and knowing when a fight isn't worth it. Kong would quickly become a survivor, living between the cracks of an ecosystem full of giants. And honestly, that's exactly what makes his survival feel realistic. Not every creature on Skull Island needs to be the biggest or the strongest. Some survive because they're smart, adaptable, and don't pick fights they can't win. He may take some hits, sometimes he'll push himself too far, but at the end of the day, he's still a king built to endure. And along the way, he might even find allies. The Iwi would recognize his spirit instantly, maybe even understand him better than he understands himself. MonsterVerse Kong stands as the protector of this region, a ruler maintaining balance, much like Godzilla. Jackson's Kong, however, was something different, a lone wanderer, a fighter, and a survivor. But with time, perhaps he too will become a protector, more social, more allies, who endures by knowing his limits, choosing his battles, and holding on to the small pieces of territory he can truly call his own. He might not rise to the top of this Skull Island, but he'd last here, bruised, scarred, and wiser, knowing once again that being a king isn't about ruling. Sometimes it's just about enduring long enough to see another sunrise. Are there any other monsters you'd like to see us throw into the MonsterVerse? Let us know in the comment section down below. Be sure to subscribe and stomp the notification.
Yeah, that is. If there is any others that are interesting too, let me know. But I think Peter Jackson's Kong's greatest chance at survival would probably playing the role of Titanos Kong's like eyes and ears, like stealthy. You know, he can go far across to the other side of the island unless Kong can already sense it or something. I don't know. I can't remember. But doing that, and he comes back and reports to him like, "Yes, Sergeant, I got you." Yeah, sticking around his territory for protection, and then going hunting, and only hunting what he needs to eat. If otherwise, he'll piss off Kong, and then he's gonna get himself turned into paste. But it is an interesting thought. But yeah. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.